Hello, my name is Walter Davis, and I'm the part of the Economic Empowerment Ministry here at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. And Pastor Jones has asked me to bring you some information so that we can communicate in a timely manner. As many of you know, on March 27th, the President signed into effect the CARES Act, which is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. And it was a $2.2 trillion stimulus. A lot of it had to do with individuals, but most of it had to do with small business. Today, in the few minutes that we have, I'd like to focus on the small business aspect of what we're talking about here, but I'll also touch a little bit on the individual pieces as well because they're still coming together as we speak. Um, there are two different programs that I'd like to talk about today. And the first is what I would say is going to be the Paycheck Protection Program. The Coronavirus Aid and Relief Act allocated $350 billion for small businesses. And what's most important to know about this is that these, what's called PPP loans, are forgivable loans if they're used for certain items. The business entities must have been in place, as you can see in the slide beside me here, February 15th, 2020. It can't be a business that was just established in the last week or so. That's important to note. Small businesses with fewer than 500 employees are eligible, as well as 501c3s, as well as 501c19s and certain tribal organizations. Importantly to also note is that individual contractors and sole proprietors are eligible for this program as well. And so any business that employs not more than 500 employees per physical location is eligible as well. So there are two things I'd like to say. One is make sure you're talking to your banker and make sure you're talking to your CPA because they can give you a lot of information here. So let's first cover the Payment Protection Program. The maximum loan is always going to be $10 million. And as you can see, the way you calculate your loan size is that you take 250% of your average payroll for the last year. And once you do that, you get that average amount, you take it, multiply it by 250%, and this gives you your amount that you're eligible to receive in the loan. And I shall say payroll costs, not just payroll. That's a key thing here. And so also to note is that if you took out an economic injury disaster loan between February 15th and June 30th, and you want to refinance that, you can do that as well. And we'll cover what the economic injury disaster loans are in just a moment. So for you businesses that weren't in business a full year prior to this covered period beginning February 15th, 2020, if you were in business, call it began business December 2019, you would take your January and your February average payroll costs, and that's how you get your eligible loan amount. Now, what costs are eligible here for payroll? Compensation, salary, wages, commissions, similar compensations, payment for vacation, parental, family leave, medical or sick leave, allowance for dismissal, separation, and payments required for the provision of group health care benefits as well. And any retirement benefit is also eligible, as you can see. Now, it's important to know what costs are not eligible as well. And so, as you'll see on the slide here, employee and owner compensation over $100,000 is not eligible. So any employee that you have who makes over $100,000, you can only use up to the $100,000 amount. Same applies if you're sole partner, sole proprietor, or partner in a small business. Compensation of employee whose principal place of residence is outside of the U.S., that's not eligible either. and qualified sick and family leave for which a credit is allowed under sections 7001 and 7003. That's not allowable either, as you can see. So, once you get the loan, what can you use these proceeds for? The payroll costs, as we've talked about. Also, importantly here, is that you can also use these payments for your mortgage interest that has been incurred. You can also use it for rent. You can also use it for utilities and interest on any other obligations that were incurred prior to the covered period. And you hear me say covered period. In the statute, covered period is defined as February 15th, 2020 until June 30th, 2020. That's important to note because the last date that you can get a loan as of right now is June 30, 2020. And we'll talk a little bit more about the timing in just a moment. So, the big piece you want to know is, how is my loan forgiven if I get this? And the forgiveness, as you can see here, is on a covered loan is equal to the sum of the payroll costs incurred during the covered 8-week period compared to the previous time. So if you had the same amount of payroll costs and going into this, once you get the loan, again, mortgage, interest, rent, and payroll. The objective here is to keep people working. And so that's the idea that the government had in coming up with this stimulus. So they want you to hang on to your employees, which is why you have the opportunity to get this loan forgiven once you are done with these payments. So how do you get it forgiven? You must apply through your lender for forgiveness. Documentation of all the things on payroll and pay rates, including IRS payroll, tax filings, state income, payroll, and unemployment insurance filings, documentation, payments on covered mortgage obligations, lease obligations, and utilities, and certification from a representative of your business that is authorized to certify that the documentation you provided is true. And so that is important to note. Now, the timing. Starting April 3rd, 2020, small businesses and sole proprietors can apply for and receive these loans, these paycheck protection loans. And so starting April 10th, 2020, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can apply for and receive loans. So hear me, April 3rd and April 10th. Most of your lenders will be handling this online, but it's important to, as I said in the beginning, talk to your banker and talk to your CPA so that you have the adequate documentation needed and you know that you're going through the right process. Remember, banks will be overwhelmed. This is unprecedented. And so please apply as quickly as possible. So now let me spend just one moment talking to you about another loan program because people are really getting confused here. I just talked to you about the Paycheck Protection Program. Now let me talk to you about the Disaster Relief, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This is a loan that's done directly through the SBA. And the loan amount can be up to $2 million. And those who are eligible are small businesses, agricultural businesses, and most nonprofit organizations. Not all nonprofits, most nonprofits are eligible for this. And it says that you've been directly affected by this disaster, which the coronavirus is a disaster, and North Carolina has been declared a disaster area. And so I would encourage you to go to the SBA website, sba.gov/disaster relief, and you should be able to find the ability to apply for this loan as well. Now, you cannot apply for both. If for some reason you applied for the disaster relief loan, then you have an opportunity to refinance it into the Paycheck Protection Program loan. But now I'd say you ask yourself the question, which loan do I apply for? If you want a forgivable loan, if you need a loan that bridges you and your payroll, listen to me. Think long and hard with your accountant and from a business perspective whether or not you actually want the forgivable loan. That's important. If you're looking to sustain yourself on a more long-term basis, the $2 million SBA disaster relief loan is not forgivable. However, qualifications are a little bit easier than a normal SBA loan. They will take collateral, they will take personal guarantees, but if collateral is not available, they won't demand that. And so, unlike traditional SBA where you have to look for other sources of funding and can't get them, that's not what this is all about, these programs. So please remember, talk to your accountant, talk to your banker or your consultant, and you will have this opportunity. One last thing I'll say. There will be programs coming about continually here, and we will do our best to inform you. One of the things that you'll see on the screen is going to be a program from LISC. It is a grant program for small businesses, and the grants are up to $10,000. Again, it's a grant. It's not a loan, and it's for small businesses during this time. And so we'll see various organizations come through with these types of efforts, and we'll make every effort to communicate in a timely manner if we're able to. So thank you very much for those of you who are small business owners. Now, for those of you who are individuals and looking for your $1,200 back that you've heard about coming, remember, if you file the tax return, you'll get the $1,200 as it stands right now. What's still up in the air is that for seniors who want the $1,200 and because of their income, they do not file tax returns, Treasury is giving guidance right now that they want you to file a short tax return for that. That could change. We don't know, but that's where we stand today. And so if you're saying, how do I get my $1,200? It will go into the account or be sent to the address for which you last filed your tax return in 2018 or 2019. Thank you. And for any of you who have questions or comments, you'll see an email address below. Please feel free to reach out, and we'll be back to you as soon as we get more information. Thank you.